What's the delay?
The delay is supposed to be like 10 seconds, so you'll be able to see us in a minute if we
there we
if we
go.
appear.
Something's happened. It refreshed.
Alrighty. I'll take it. I'll take something. Something's good.
I cannot see my face though.
Who needs to see that?
Well, that's true enough, I suppose.
You know, overrated, I say. Faces.
There we are.
Ah, you see us at last. All right. Well, that wasn't the cold open I wanted, but it's the cold open I will take. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Brass Ringers, the show that shines a light on pro wrestlers that almost made it to the top of the mountain, but for whatever reason never did. This week, as you've seen from the thumbnail, we are talking about the vastly popular Magnum T.A. I should probably introduce myself. My name is Dale Brody, and alongside me is Dan Morgan. Dan Morgan, how are you, sir?
I'm feeling really good. It's really nice to be doing something again, to be filming some things, and I'm excited to talk about Magnum T.A., although I've just dropped my notes on the floor, so I'll just bend down to pick them up while you carry on.
You bend down to pick them up while and show everyone your lovely vest chair and Bjork poster.
Oh, the vest chair.
Good old vest chair. One day people will know the story of vest chair, but for now it shall remain a mystery. So yeah, I was going to say this is probably our first project together for like 8 years. No, not that long ago.
Well, yeah, it's about 8 years since we last did anything. Yeah, something like that. It might be closer to 10.
Since we started or since we ended our last project?
Well, since we started, but it's neither here nor
there. That's terrifying. And all it took was a global pandemic to get us doing something again. For those of you that don't know us, so as I said, my name's Dale. I am a videographer, photographer. Put a on the end of it, and I'm more than likely have done it at some point. And Dan, tell the people what you do.
I'm a graphic designer and, like Dale, a long-time professional wrestling fan.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. We are doing a podcast about professional wrestling because we both love professional wrestling. And, you know, I think we both have very different starts in watching professional wrestling. For me, I didn't start until like 2003 when you had the likes of John Cena starting up and the SmackDown 6 and Triple H and Goldberg over on Raw. So I come at wrestling with an absolute love for it, and I love going back and watching the older stuff, but there is definitely a time limit where I kind of stop watching wrestling. And Dan, I feel like you're kind of similar to me. So you've heard of these names from the past, but won't know much about them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons for doing this show was that, yeah, I started probably a bit earlier than you. I was very much Attitude Era, Stone Cold Steve Austin time. Having said that, like, WCW was really my jam. It was the thing that I loved watching week after week. I stopped for about 10 years and then got back into it because of Dale, actually, in my late teens, and I've been watching ever since. So what we both have in common is that we're both still, you know, even though we're both 30 or almost 30, we're still young guys, and we missed all of these legends that never made it to that big show, that never made it to those WCW title matches or the WWF title matches at the time. So we just sort of hear these names through the sort of through the grapevine, through people talking about these classic matches and things like that. So we wanted to go back and take a look at those guys.
Absolutely. And the first name that came to mind when we came up with this idea for me was Magnum T.A. He's a guy who you see on the posters and you see the action shots, and he's got this very like classic wrestler image, but you don't hear a lot about him, and he didn't seem to get very far. So I wanted to look into that, and that's what we're going to do today. So, Dan, let me take you on a very brief history of Magnum T.A.
I'm super excited.
What you can't see is I've just done a wonderful transition there into a beautiful video package which does nothing but show photos of Magnum T.A. While I ramble on. So, Magnum T.A. is from Norfolk, Virginia. He grew up there, kind of became a collegiate wrestler while in high school, and with his team went on to win the state championships. But then in the late 70s, so kind of 78, 79, decided he wanted to become a professional wrestler. This is when he starts his training, starts his journey, and heads on over to Portland, Oregon to train and wrestle with Don Owens, who owns Pacific Northwest Wrestling. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, people, I only know so much about the territories. I am going to get things wrong on this journey. It is very confusing. The fact that he works for Jim Crockett Promotions, which has World Championship Wrestling, that isn't WCW, which is NWA, it all gets very confusing for me. So I'm going to try my best. So he heads over to Pacific Northwest Wrestling, does about a year there, then heads over to Texas to work for Joe Blanchard, who is the father of Tully, and works for Southwest Championship Wrestling. Works there for a bit and then heads on down to Florida. It's while he's in Florida, he meets up with Dusty Rhodes, who, of course, becomes this massive figure in his career, really kind of goes out to support him. Funny enough, along this journey, he works with Andre the Giant. I heard him on a podcast talking about this where he said, you know, back in the day, whoever had the biggest car, it was their responsibility to drive Andre the Giant around to make sure he was comfortable. So he had this like big pickup truck, so he's the one who got the role. And one time he's having breakfast with Andre, and Andre's like, dude, you need to give yourself a name. You need a moniker. He's like, and he asks any suggestions, and he's like, you should call yourself, like, you look like Tom Selleck, that Magnum P.I. You should be like Magnum T.A. because T.A., Terry Allen, and it's funny in the podcast, he's like, and a light bulb went off in my head, and I decided to go, and it's like, a light bulb didn't go off in your head. Andre the Giant just told you what your name should be, and you went, great,
and
sounds
you take
good.
it.
Yeah, you didn't go like, oh, I've had an idea.
Yeah.
So starts going by Magnum T.A. and then along with Dusty kind of heads over to Jim Crockett Promotions. And this is where he'd work the most of his time between World Championship Wrestling and Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. While over there, he feuds with the likes of Wahoo McDaniels shortly after his debut. And that's for the US title, which he goes on to win. And it's kind of the title he's most associated with throughout his career, I think.
Wahoo McDaniels is a terrific name, by the way.
It's wonderful, because I know he's got this Native American gimmick. And McDaniels is such a Native American surname. I haven't done a whole lot of research into him, but I'm dubious about his place of origin. So he wrestles Wahoo, becomes the US champion, and then he kind of goes into this multi-feud with the Four Horsemen. So he kind of takes them on one by one. The main rivalry, of course, being with Tully Blanchard, which we're going to get into very shortly, and Ric Flair as well, and kind of like a tester out to see if he's fit for the world title picture. He then goes on to feud for the US title with Nikita Koloff, and Ivan Koloff is manager and his uncle, apparently. And it's kind of this feud that cements his place. So they end up doing a best of 7 series after Magnum is stripped of the US title. Now, he's stripped of the US title because he gets into a fight at a press conference after have you seen this press conference?
No.
Okay, I'd say press conference. It's more of a contract signing. So Magnum T.A. shows up to this contract signing. With Nikita Koloff shows up as well. Nikita has Ivan Koloff. Magnum T.A. has his mother. I don't know why his mother's there. And
well, I was going to ask you about that actually, because you told me to watch this thing on the network, and I think I ended up watching the wrong thing. What I ended up watching was Magnum T.A. running down the beach, slow motion, in the pair of what quite honestly are the smallest pair of shorts I've ever seen in my life. And his mum is sort of, she's there on the beach and the wind is whipping her blouse, you know what I mean? And I'm like, and I'm watching, I didn't know it was his mum, and I'm like, mum or wife? Mum or wife? Because it's the 80s, and like sometimes, I don't know, the
It's
women,
hard to tell.
the hair and the blouse, like sometimes they look
How did you become
like,
tipped
mum
off
or wife?
that it was the mum?
Well, first of all, I was watching it, and like they hold hands and they look like they're going in for a kiss, and I'm like, wife. But then they pull away. You know, it's a surreal thing. It keeps cutting back to a seagull. I don't know. It's a very strange video. But what I could tell from that video, that this man has a very close relationship with his mother, and I think that may have been part of his gimmick.
It most certainly must have been. So he shows up to this this contract signing, this contract signing with his mum, and obviously Nikita Koloff. There's a trade of words, and he goes, you know, in my best Russian, he goes, you know, you bring your mother here with you as some kind of, as you Americans would say, mama's boy. And this is his Marty McFly chicken moment, where he's just like, you call me a mama's boy? And he just leaps across the table and starts attacking him. And then the Koloffs kick him in. And the commissioner takes the belt off of T.A. because you attacked him, which is harsh. But also,
harsh ruling,
I understand it at the same time. If that's what you raised to, is being called a mama's boy, when you brought your mum to the contract signing, I don't know what to tell you, man. You probably should be stripped of the title and be put in a best of 7 series for it. So he does this best of 7 series. In the kind of summer of '86. It's kind of the big storyline throughout. It's what they do up and down the territory, all the house shows. And in the end, Nikita Koloff wins the series, kind of freeing up Magnum T.A. to then start looking at the world title. So that all happens in August '86. By October... in fact, October 14th, 1986, Magnum T.A.'s out in North Carolina driving his Porsche in the rain and just loses control of it. Goes horribly wrong, ends up wrapping his Porsche around a telephone pole, and in the process, his C4 and his C5 vertebrae just like absolutely explode. As a result of this, he's kind of told by doctors, you're never going to walk again and your career is over. Now, luckily, he has, you know, initially he was paralyzed. He has gained back some movement, and he has been able to walk. But it completely ended his wrestling career. So that's kind of the end of the Magnum T.A. story from an in-ring standpoint.
So he never wrestled again after that?
Never wrestled again, no.
Right.
It kind of changed all the plans, because then after that happened, Nikita Koloff ended up becoming the hero of the story, and they kind of went on to say that he had gained Magnum's respect over the best of 7 series, and the one thing he could do to honor Magnum was to go on and win the world title. I did not check to see if he went to win the world title in the end. I could probably Google that. I'm not going to. You Google it. I don't know. But I know he certainly ended up in the main event picture after that. So that's kind of the very brief history of Magnum T.A. Now, what we've done is we've gone back and watched some of the matches that people say, like, you got to check this one out, to see kind of what was he like from an in-ring standpoint. Now, before I get onto the matches, did you get a chance to check out any of the promo work from Magnum T.A.?
At the start of the Ric Flair match, he gives a very quick promo. And it's basically nothing more than, I'm about to win this match. But no, I didn't extensively see, a lot of long sort of detailed promos now.
So I kind of did a bit of a binge on the network, and what I was able to see is he's not quite as polished as you'd want, but he has moments of delivery that are like, that's good. And, you know, working alongside Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, you could see he was going to get better. There's a great promo, you can find it on YouTube, where it's him and Ric Flair kind of doing a face-off. And, you know, he comes out in his little leather jacket and his wrestling attire. And Ric Flair comes out in the $6,000 suits and the shades and the watch.
Yeah.
And he says, he's like, I've come out here dressed as a champion, and you've come out here looking for a fight. And Magnum T.A. just goes, well, I'm a man who likes leather and Levi's, and I like to fight. And I'm like, something really weirdly wholesome about that I kind of find endearing. So he's definitely someone that
and also a little homoerotic.
I mean, the homoerotic subtext with this man knows no bounds. And you've brought me on nicely to a look at Magnum T.A., which is the video I wanted you to watch. You did end up watching. I love this video so much because it is not good. But it's also great. I urge everyone who has the network to go and watch a look with Magnum T.A. We open up to a shot of a Harley Davidson, and then with like a nice snap cut, all of a sudden he's on it, lying on it. So he's lying across it. He is shirtless. He has on a pair of Levi jeans and white cowboy boots. He has fingerless gloves and a red bandana around his neck. It is a look. And to top off the look, he just goes into the camera. Just gives it a little thumbs up. Then we see him and he's riding on the Harley. He's got a jacket on now. What does he do? A little thumbs up. And I don't know why he keeps doing this thumbs up. It's not like his thing. He's not in the ring being like, thumbs up. So then he does they show him doing some drop kicks. He does a very nice drop kick. Then he's walking around a garage where there's a photo of a woman sitting on a Harley, and he looks at it, and then he looks at the camera. Thumbs up. Then all of a sudden he's hanging out in a bar, and he's got women all over it. I say women. There are 3 women that they've clearly paid to be like, listen, can you go and harass this man? And they're all over him. And this is the one where they then just cut. He doesn't give the thumbs up. And I'm like, this was surely the one shot where he absolutely should have. Then we get the weirdest shot. I don't know if you spotted the licking of the lips.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
I don't know, but it's really uncomfortable. It's just this woman, and it's a close-up on her mouth, and she like licks her lips, and you just kind of, it's less like seductive and more something out of a horror film.
Yeah, I suppose we're sort of zooming in on how those women must have felt being around the sort of sheer magnetism that is Magnum T.A., you know. I guess that's what's going on in their mind. It's a kind of eternal licking of the lips.
That's all that's running through here. Well, then they just start fighting with him to make out with him, and then there's some more shots of belly-to-belly suplexes and a few more moves, and then just for no reason, the end of this video, and it's what I love about it, the end of this video feels like they ran out of clips. So they were like, okay, we just need to put some stuff in. So it shows him smashing Tully Blanchard's head on a table, and then immediately snap cuts to him peck popping, just for no reason. Yeah. And technically you don't even know it's him, because it is just his chest doing the peck pop, and then it's back to him shirtless on the bike. And then end scene. It just cuts back to the interview being like, well, that's Magnum T.A.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because they obviously, this is what they had this on. They're obviously trying to promote this guy, promoting whatever the match was that was coming up. And it actually, I wasn't sure we were going to get into this early, but I guess it's here, is that, like, I do think this guy was, as solid as he was in the ring, had a bit of an identity crisis. I'm not sure that he necessarily knew who he was. In the ring, we'll talk about it in a bit, he's this kind of stoic guy, very much a babyface, and yet in a video package like this, I feel like the people who are editing this are trying to find like who this guy is. Is he a womanizer? Like he's on the motorbike? Like is he a raging homosexual? I don't think that was in there really, but maybe that's the subtext we look at it these
Through
days. With the guy
lens.
shirtless on a motorbike and cowboy boots. But you know, I think they're trying to like find like who this guy is, because you see this video package of this like womanizing, motorbike riding badass. That's not necessarily the guy you see in the ring.
Yeah, definitely. And part of me wonders if that's him or if that's kind of NWA, because I know, you know, we're talking kind of 85, 86 here. And at this point, and again, I'm not a historian, but from what I can tell at this point, we're kind of seeing a separation of wrestling. You know, Hulkamania is taking off over in kind of the East Coast area, so you're getting a lot of territory guys who are starting to leave the kind of smaller territories and go to WWF. Guys like Ted DiBiase, who I watched him wrestle Magnum T.A, and I'm going to bring that up briefly later on, but his character is bland. He looks bland. He's a dude who wears black trunks and black boots, and then all of a sudden he goes to the WWF and he's the $1 million man in the suits, with the laugh and the beard, like, and it's an amazing character. So part of me wonders if this is kind of NWA being like, all right, you can't just be stoic wrestler man. You need to have more to you. Right. You need to be about Harleys and girls and America, because
they're starting to realize that it's not enough, right?
Just to be a wrestler. It's
not enough just to be solid and be a wrestler and be a good looking guy or whatever. You need that larger than life gimmick.
And I think what I got from him ultimately throughout this is he's very much a kind of Dusty Rhodes type. So it's like that kind of working class man. He's just there to do the wrestle, and then, you know, he's going to leave the ring and go and have a beer. That's his whole thing. And I don't know if we got the full potential of that. Like, I don't know if we got to see much in the way of exploration of that character. But we're certainly going to explore his character now in the matches that we watched. We watched 3 matches in total to kind of get as much perspective as we could on the character of Magnum T.A. So I am going to start with the match he had against Ric Flair. So Ric Flair versus Magnum T.A. happened in September of 1985 in Chicago, Illinois. The reason why I want to start with this, Dan, is because I think we can both agree that on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, you're probably going to have Ric Flair up there. He is one of the greatest promos. He's one of the best wrestlers. And from what I've seen of Ric Flair is he does an amazing job of making other people look amazing. I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I always get the sense that he realizes he can make himself look good by making his opponent also look great.
Yeah, that's completely spot on. Yeah, I mean, out of the 3 that we watched, I thought this was his best match.
Okay.
And to be honest, that speaks to the quality of Ric Flair. Yeah, I mean, and it was also a very different match for him as well. Like the other 2 matches are very different than this.
Yeah.
What he shows in this match is not only can he go with Ric Flair, who's one of the best of all time, but that he's got a real sort of versatility of style. Like we start the first 10 minutes of this match is sort of like that catch wrestling style. It's very technical. It's a very sort of slow build. And that isn't what at least I saw in the other 2 matches of his that we watched.
Yeah. I think when you see him against Ric Flair, the other great thing compared to the other 2 matches we watched is he's made to look like the strong hero. Whereas in the other 2 matches, I think he's supposed to look like the valiant babyface. I'm going to get beat down, but I'm going to come back strong. This match is almost the opposite. This is, you know, he's trying to catch the the sneaky heel, like, Ric Flair's trying to get away or try to beg for mercy, and it's up to Magnum T.A. to kind of sock it to him almost. I think this match is kind of a really great indictment. It's funny enough the one I've got the least to speak about, because it also feels like the most almost regular match of the three. The other two, I think the stakes are higher. I mean, I say the stakes are higher. This match is for the world title, but you can also see it was one of the first attempts for the world title.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, though, because there was a few things I wanted to ask you about, though. This match itself, it's a strange atmosphere and environment. Do you know, like, what was going on here? I mean, it's a kind of half-empty stadium. There are some seats free on the front row.
So this is, I mean, you look at modern day WWE, specifically the Royal Rumbles. I don't know if you've noticed in the last 3 years or so, they host the Royal Rumbles in baseball stadiums now. It's why you get the kind of weird entranceways and the like slightly strange shaped walkways, because they were held in baseball stadiums. And this is also held in a baseball stadium. I'm not sure if it's Wrigley Fields, which I know is the one in Chicago, but I know it's certainly in a baseball stadium, and I think it's just the spacing. We'll certainly get onto this later in the series, because I know in territory wrestling, baseball stadiums were a favorite, especially when you and even modern day, you get things like Global Force Wrestling, and they held their shows in a baseball stadium. But if you look at, they didn't really have the infrastructure to do all four sides, so they're kind of in this weird corner. Chairs are kind of everywhere. One thing I noticed in this match is there is a toddler at one point that just runs right past the hard cam, like ringside. And it's bizarre. Like just this little 3-year-old just do across the screen. And I have no idea why. I don't know whose child that is.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that front row is as well. It's weird the way it's structured. It's like that front row is completely, or the front 3 rows, completely isolated.
Yeah,
from like the rest of the arena. It's like you've got 3 rows by the ring. You've got a load of empty space, and then you've got the crowd. I think I even saw. I mean, I might be wrong. People watching will know better than me, but I think I even saw a young Shawn Michaels on the front row. So I'm wondering if it was kind of like a prelude to the wrestling crowds we've got now in a pandemic era, where it's not actually real people, but sort of friends and family that are on the front row.
It very well could be, or it could also be a case of almost like in boxing events when you get like the media row. It could be something like that, where they're the journalists and things like that. But I'm not entirely sure. One thing I did gather from this match and a couple of others, women love Magnum T.A. My God, the noise coming out of it. It very much reminds me of kind of 2006, 2007 John Cena, where the cheering you hear for him is just very high pitched because it's all children and women.
Well, yeah, but at least John Cena, it's like young women. What I love about watching old wrestling is that you have these like old like 78-year-old women who are like, "You got him, Magnum! You got him!" Like,
throwing the handbags.
Yeah. So like old women loved wrestling at this time, and I just love it.
It's incredible. And I love it. It has to be said, I do love the aesthetic of all 3 of these matches. Like, I love that NWA look where it's the blue ring with the little tape for the NWA, or even the I know in this one in Chicago, it's like this green ring in the middle of this baseball stadium. So I absolutely love it. I want to take us now to the next match, and this is the sorry. Just before you move on, I wanted to just point out something.
I love that that the reverse the pressure of the figure 4 exists way back then. It's in the mid 80s. Like, I love that has been a thing all of this time, to the point I've never told you this, but like, you know, we always think like, what would be your wrestling finishing move? And my idea was that if I was a wrestler, my finishing move would be that I would lure someone into putting me in the figure four, just so I could reverse the pressure.
Your finisher is reverse the pressure.
My finisher would be reverse the pressure.
It is one of my favorite spots in wrestling. And I love it so much because it's one of those that has existed since the 80s and exists to this day. And it's the one thing that I feel like universally all wrestling fans have gone, this makes no sense. That's not how pressure works. But we love it, so let's not argue about it. And I really respect that level of like everyone just being like,
my finishing move. I'll be on my back. Like, you want to put me in a figure four, don't you? You want to do it, don't you?
Just with your legs up, being
like, get me in it, and back, and reverse the pressure.
I love it. Yeah, it's such an incredible move. So let's now talk about another horseman that Magnum T.A. feuded with, and that's Tully Blanchard. I know very little about Tully Blanchard. I watched one interview with him, mainly around this match, where he's being asked about Magnum T.A. and how the cage match came to be and if the chair was gimmicked or not. And it seems like a really good interview. And then out of nowhere, the interviewer just goes, and why did your wife leave you for Magnum? And I'm like, oh, that's out of nowhere. And he's like, I don't know. You would have to ask them. And I'm like, whoa, that was awkward.
So is that the woman who accompanied him to the ring, that baby doll woman? Or
I'm not sure. It very well could be. I wouldn't want to speculate. I didn't really know what Baby Doll's involvement was. I know that she's clearly a big part of the story, because she keeps getting mentioned, and I've seen her be brought up in quite a few different conversations.
She tosses the chair in, doesn't she?
Yeah. No, from what I can see, she is not Tully's wife. Different woman. But I know she was very important to this storyline. No, yeah, it was such a bizarre question. It was like, there's no need for that. That's very strange. So these two feuded for quite a while, traded the US title back and forth, and it led to Starrcade 1985 and an I Quit match. The difference to this I Quit match is it was in a steel cage, which I don't know how you feel about this. Steel cage gimmick being used as a backdrop for an I Quit match. So instead of it being over the top and escape the cage, you have to make your opponent say I quit. I love it, because the one thing I've never really gotten with a steel cage match is it's supposed to be the blow off to a big feud normally, and you know, it's this really intense rivalry, and how do we go about winning? You need to run away. The first person who can run away is the winner. So the fact that instead it's just used as this weapon and this thing to contain you, I really like that.
No, I agree. Steel cage matches are often stupid for that reason. Yeah, like you're supposed to be these guys like ending their feud, and they're trying to scale, and like, the worst offender is like opening the door. So yeah, the fact that these two are locked in and they have to go at it until one of them quits, like on the surface, completely makes sense to me.
Yeah. So this match is completely different from the other matches. This is the end of a feud, and these two just use this match as like a fight. So it's a lot of kind of like rolling around and just kind of like punching on each other. What I love right at the start is they kind of get across the brutality of the steel cage by like threatening to throw each other in, and they're desperately trying to like stop themselves. And then the first time both of them hit it, you get Magnum T.A. gets thrown into it first, and he goes flying, smashes his head off it, does a very nice blade job mid-air, I don't know if you
Immediate
caught
blade job, yeah.
that.
I didn't catch it in midair, no, but I real immediate blade job I noticed.
He is not a subtle bleeder. He makes it quite obvious when he does it. He kind of hits it, and then as he jumps across, he like, which is disgusting.
You know what? One of the things that I thought was nice about it was exactly what you just mentioned. You know, I just watched AEW Revolution this weekend, and they do exactly the same thing in that barbed wire death match that they had, and it's nice to see that like that psychology hasn't really changed in 30 years. Yeah. It's like, you know, it's going to be bad, so each guy is trying to like avoid it, and that becomes the sort of template for the match, or at least it does for the beginning of it.
Yeah,
is avoiding that thing, and I really saw that echo there.
Yeah, and I think what was I had the exact same thought, by the way, and what I loved about it is, you know, once Magnum T.A.'s head comes off it and he's bleeding, they kind of get back into it, and Magnum starts working the arm and keeps working the arm and like dropping knees on it and doing key locks, and at one point he gets him in a key lock and throws him into the cage with his arm, and then does it again. And when you see Tully come up, at first I thought his head was bleeding because he had blood on the side of his face, and then like I looked and it's his arm that's bleeding. So I love that little level of detail where it's like, if I'm working the arm, I'm working the arm. Like if that's where I've decided you are bleeding, that's where you're going to bleed from. And I love the kind of visual of that.
Everything is just, it's, you know, we're so spoiled with modern wrestling and we almost get too much these days. But like when you look at this old stuff, it really happens on a more sort of minute level. Like if you're working the arm, like that's the match. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the whole match. And that's what you see here is like all these little details that happen sort of on the ground that you have to buy into it. And what you see in these old matches as well is that the crowd really, and it's hard for us, but the crowd there really buy into it. You know, there's a moment where Tully Blanchard's dropping these like elbow drops. He drops one, he drops two. Then Magnum T.A. rolls out the way for the third one. Yeah. He drops the third on the canvas, and the crowd explodes.
Oh, they go insane for it, yeah.
They go insane just for this like moving out the way of an elbow drop. So when you watch these old matches, you sort of have to, part of you has to get into this mindset of like, you know, what was going on at the time and how did the crowd feel about wrestling at the time and the kind of things that they would react to. You know, it's easy to look at a match like this and say, well, this is just two guys going back and forth. The guy punches the other a few times and the guy punches the other a few times. And that's all the match is basically until we get a sort of wooden spike involved. But at the same time, if you look a little deeper, you can see that they are doing stuff. They're just maybe not doing stuff for you as a modern viewer, but they're certainly doing stuff for this crowd that are watching them.
Absolutely. And the as you said there, like the crowd are popping for really small moments in the match, which is it is, as you said, I think it's something we kind of take for granted now. And also something that I don't want to say it's lost now, but I think you see a lot less of. You don't see that like intense working of one limb in matches now. You don't to me, I just feel like people...
One that comes to mind, a recent one that comes to mind, just because I just watched it a few weeks ago, was Pete Dunne Finn Balor.
Yes.
Which is a very old school wrestling match where you pick a limb and you work on it and that repeats throughout the story. Yeah. But it takes guys like that who are students of the past to put on a match like that. And to be honest, not everyone appreciates it because, you know, on the other channel, you've got, I don't know, like Ray Phoenix Jr. doing like some of the crazy...
Both are amazing.
Yeah, exactly. It's all there. You know, we've got something for everyone.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Something that I am curious to get your thoughts on in this match is the microphone and the use of the microphone. So my favorite is about, I want to say, 3 minutes into this match. Now, the referee in this match is useless. He has no purpose to the point where... at the start, they're like doing this big like spot of punch and they're rolling on the floor and they're like, and the refs just kind of stood there like, you lads all right there? Everything okay? All right. And then my favorite, about 2 minutes after that, he's like, someone's going to need the microphone soon. Hang on, let me go and get it. To make sure it's on, which is like, I apologize for everyone listening there, but it's like, what are you doing? That's not how you check before the match starts.
First of all, the referee's Earl Hebner, right?
I think it is. I think it's a young Earl Hebner.
Pretty sure it's Earl Hebner. Yeah, which shows you just how long that guy's been going.
Well,
also the microphone becomes a bit of a character in this match, right?
Yes, and I love the use of the microphone as a weapon. First mainly by Tully, and then kind of as the match progresses, all of a sudden Magnum's like, I'm gonna get in on this. And I
feel like this must have been done, but I feel like I'm watching this match and I'm thinking the finish of this match has to be you choke the guy with the microphone wire.
You would think, wouldn't you? Considering that,
like if I'm booking that match,
that's how.
I didn't see. I mean, to be fair, how could I have seen the spike in the eye coming? Like I couldn't have seen that.
Well, so this is what annoys me, right? So I love the finish. Chair gets thrown in, Tully smashes it up, and then he's doing the kind of like trying to get this broken piece of chair into Magnum's head, and Magnum has to do the valiant hero comeback where he pushes Tully off of him and then switches it around and he stabs Tully in the head. This is what annoys me after all the times that they kept using the microphone and they're screaming into it. Say it. Say you'll quit. No. This time you just get Magnum going, say it. And Tully's like, yes. Because the microphone's on the floor behind them. So no one actually, like the ref doesn't even go and pick it up and bring it over. Hi, guys. You had this one prop for the finish. It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Bob Backlund and Bret Hart. They had an I Quit match at WrestleMania. And they had it with Roddy Piper was the referee. And it's this match has been going on for ages. Everyone's kind of bored. And Piper's been doing the microphone. And he's like, do you want to quit? No. Do you want to quit? No. And eventually Backlund has to give up. And Piper's like, what do you say? What do you say? Puts the mic in his face. And Backlund just goes, and Piper goes, you know what? Close enough. Ring the bell. And it's so, like, the end of an I Quit match feels so easy to me. Just say I quit. It's, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's messed up or if there's, like, intentional.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't actually say I quit. And I'm assuming
is there a weird pride
they didn't use that afterwards, right? They didn't use the fact that...
No. It wasn't used after that. But that's what I wonder. Yeah. Is it a pride thing where it's like, I'm not actually going to quit, so I'll just botch the finish. Yeah. Who knows?
No, what I thought about this match as well was that they were just, again, nowadays we assume an I Quit match is going to be full of submission holds. Yeah. I don't think there was a single submission hold in this match. There was
maybe a couple of headlocks, but for the most part, it's just kind of...
Well, yeah, like hammerlocks, like here and there, and like armbar, but like nothing...
There's no like big...
That never was part of the I Quit thing. Do you know what I mean? It was always like, I'm going to put you in a hold, then I'm going to punch you a few times, then I'm going to ask you if you quit, rather than get you in a painful submission, which just seems like more obvious psychology to me.
Yeah, but I kind of like that because it gives the match more of a blood feud feel. That like, I'm not getting technical with you.
Right.
I'm going to...
Just going to beat you till you can't go anymore. I'm going to smash you in the head with
a microphone until you say you quit. Like that's, or I'm going to put a spike in your head.
So was the chair gimmick? Did you get an answer?
No, he went. No. It absolutely was because it was broken before it got in the ring. Yeah,
it was a little broken. Yeah, it was.
But
strange.
I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed the commentator. Spike in the eye. Spike in the eye. It's a great band name.
Spike in the eye. We are Spike in the eye. I dig it. Overall, how did you feel about this match?
I think there's some good stuff there going on, and I'm sure for its time it was really good. It's a little dated
at the time
now.
it's hailed as the most violent match in wrestling history. Now, I don't know if that was just NWA marketing, but that's kind of what they put it across as.
Right. Well, it's nice. It's nice to have that context. Yeah, I mean, everything. They were both a nice shade of claret there, both of them, and the chair and the spike. It's a kind of iconic finish. The match does boil down to, I'm going to punch you a few times and ask you if you quit. Now I'm going to punch you a few times and ask you if you quit. I will say visually, I love the way it looks. I love the way, I watched it on the WWE Network, and it starts with Tully Blanchard entrance, which is epic. There's like smoke. There's this great rock music. There's the way the cage is lit. And,
Magnum T.A. looks like a superstar when he walks out. It's this proper like down through the smoke with the title on. He looks amazing.
It looks great. It looks great. And even the way the cage is lit, one of the problems I have with modern wrestling is it's too well lit. And I don't know if this was maybe just the limitations of the time. But the way this is lit, I love it. I love that we have these spots coming down and then just black, like surrounding the ring. It makes it feel like these two guys are sort of like the center of the universe, and I love it. But like I said, it may just be that the limitations of the time. I think the match is a little dated now. I don't think it's as overall as enjoyable as the Flair match, even though it's an epic, kind of iconic finish.
Cool. And then, so that's going to take us on to our final match. This was kind of TA's last big feud, and this is with Nikita Koloff. So we watched a part of the Best of 7 series. Did you watch the same as me, match 4? Yeah.
Number 4.
So
yeah.
The reason why I watched 4 is because, A, it's the only one on the network. And the story going into match number 4 is that Nikita was up 3 matches to nothing. So Nikita had been winning them all, mainly through kind of dubious means, using Ivan Koloff, his manager, to kind of help distract the ref or help him get the win wherever he can. So this match number 4 is at the Great American Bash in 1986. We've got the evil Russian Nikita Koloff going up against Magnum T.A. And before we get into this match, can I just say, Nikita Koloff is a monster of a human being. It's ridiculous.
He's got such long arms for such a big man.
He looks like Rick Steiner mixed with Brock Lesnar. It's bizarre.
Yeah, but Rick Steiner's got those short bench press arms. Like, Nikita Koloff looks like he's just got this incredible reach as well. Like, his arms are like down by his knees. He's got an insane physique.
Ridiculous. So he is ridiculous, and he's someone that I definitely want to kind of look at later on down the line. Maybe not for this series, maybe for something else. I don't know. What I do know is he's definitely not Russian. I don't know where in America he's from, but he's definitely not Russian, as was the style of the time. So the match starts off with kind of the classic back and forth. Something that I find endearing about wrestling is the endurance of you get a lot of the patriotic hero versus the foreign menace. We've seen it a lot with Iranians, with the Japanese, all these different countries, but there's an enduring quality to the USA versus Russia angle that I absolutely love.
There is.
And I think
there is, an enduring quality. It's a good
what
way
I think
to put
I
it,
love about it is the fact that they're almost seen as equals. So the way this match starts, it's this back and forth, push, shove. And it's only once kind of Nikita Koloff decides to, use the shoulder in the corner while the ref's doing the count that he starts getting the advantage. He's able to use nefarious means to get the one up. So there's a great bit of back and forth that I think shows the power on display from both of these lads. Like, they are both incredibly strong. There is a great moment where Nikita Koloff's got him in a headlock, and TA is able to power out of it and bounce off the ropes and come back with this amazing crossbody that, like, he both seems to jump really high and yet doesn't go very high at all. So it looks very dramatic. It stays quite low, and it just seems to plow through Nikita Koloff straight into a pin, and Nikita just powers out of it and throws Magnum out of the ring. And I don't know if you caught this. He was maybe a centimeter away from smashing his head on the wooden ring steps next to the ring.
I didn't catch that, no, but I know that's what you're talking about.
It was very close. So then referee distraction, and Nikita Koloff's able to smash Magnum's head into the ring post, causing him to bleed again. Again, not very subtle. He kind of puts half of his body on the ring, and he's there for a long time. The international sign of, I'm a bit busy here. Comes back out, a lovely crimson red. We get a lot of kind of big elbows and punches from Nikita Koloff. And you get this really cool moment where Nikita keeps throwing him out the ring as if to be like, this is my yard type of thing. Keeps just throwing him out, and he keeps getting back in, throwing him out. And there's a moment where he throws him out, and the referee starts giving out to Nikita. And you see Ivan Koloff just kind of like, ooh, I think I'm good. And the crowd are going insane for it. Like, they love this. They are like, don't you do it. Don't you do it. And he kicks him, and they all go crazy, which is amazing. Then another time, Nikita throws him out the other side of the ring. And this time, Magnum does bounce his head off of the wooden steps, and it's horrible. And then you get this amazing moment where Magnum starts doing the comeback sequence, and he kind of, I'm pretty sure it was this match. I did a bit of a binge, which I'm going to go into in a minute, but he does this like yell. Like, he does this proper, like, he knocks him down a few times, and then he goes like, "Rah!" and starts like just going crazy on the kid. And there was something about it that I really liked. It's this almost, as we were saying, this stoic character, but when the chips are down and he's got to like bring it out of him, he really does. And I love that. There's kind of some more back and forth. He ends up on the outside of the ring, comes back for a sunset flip, hits the sunset flip. Nikita's grabbing onto the ropes, and the referee ninja kicks Koloff's arms off of the ropes, so he gets into the pin and then counts the 3. I was like, I hope this match...
I was very confused.
Like, I hope this decision was turned, because justice for the Russians here. This was an absolutely a travesty of a finish, quite frankly.
Well, it was so interesting because it was such a classic wrestling dynamic. I mean, it was the match, you know, you basically, you told the story of the match there, but I don't know if you got across how one-sided it was.
Yeah.
Like, other than for the first minute or so, first 2 minutes maybe, like, Magnum T.A. gets no offense in. The Russian beats him down. Yeah, there's some nefarious things going on here and there, but in general, you know, he's beating the living daylights out of him. And then this roll up at the end, and the referee kicks his hands off the ropes, and I'm like, first of all, I didn't see it coming, so that's great, you know. But the second, like, they must have, like, what? I was just like, why though? It didn't seem to make any sense. Like, the ref seemed to be calling it down the middle. Maybe he was just fed up of all the shenanigans that was going on and wanted to take charge.
Because there's nothing wrong with holding the rope. Say, so.
No, you're allowed to do that. Yeah, he just literally kicks his hand off the rope.
On there.
I will say that this is like, this gimmick, this best of 7 series is dumb. Like, not a fan of the best of 7 series, because, I mean, it's always got to get to 7, right? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know a time where it didn't.
Yeah. So then why not just do 1? Because it's always going to come down. I will say this. The only time I've ever seen it in the era that I've been watching, is the only one I can think of, is the Sheamus versus Cesaro best of 7 series.
So there was that one, which I really enjoyed that. I
didn't. No, I enjoyed match 7. which was the best match of the series. But I didn't enjoy the first 6 because you're like, well, this is just a slog, and nothing means anything until you get to 7.
Well, and the problem with that series is they'd had 4 matches before the series even started. So it was an 11-match series in the end, which is ridiculous. But like, my favorite was back when I was younger, they did Booker T versus Chris Benoit in a best of 7 series. And the final match, Booker T got injured, so Randy Orton replaced him. It's like, that's not how that works. But I understand the best of 7 series back in this time, in 85, because these weren't all televised.
When the kayfabe, and the kayfabe was also a bit, the curtain was less removed.
Yeah, and
right?
it gives it this kind of sports feel.
It's a best
the best 7. It's how they decide the. This is coming from a non-sports person. My entire knowledge of this comes from the Last Dance documentary, but it's how they determine the NBA finals. Is a best of 7 series.
But in basketball, you can win 4-0.
Oh yeah. Well, in wrestling, technically you could. It'd just be boring.
Yeah, but you never do. It always goes to 7, right? Although people will be able to tell us whether we're wrong about that. Maybe there have been some 4-0s.
I'm sure there have been.
Unless they're on, it's a strange gimmick. But I see what you're saying, right? The territory thing. Not everything is televised, so these guys get to wrestle in different territories, maybe in different sort of terrestrial regions as well, so that you get it on your telly over there, and then someone else gets it on the telly in a different state,
it was
like the sort of syndicated.
It was all for kind of Jim Crockett promotions, but and at this point they are national-ish. But this is more to kind of fill up the I guess what we'd consider house shows now that you would get. So, they do a night in North Carolina and then a night down in Florida, and then I'm just naming places. I don't know geography very well, especially of the United States. So they would kind of bounce around like that. And then I think like 3 of the matches would be televised in the end. It's very strange because on the network, they don't have the final. In fact, this seems to be the only match between the 2 available on the network, which is very strange. But overall, what did you think of the match besides the dodgy finish?
Well, it was just a very standard wrestling match in terms of like that dynamic of like monster heel, plucky babyface, but like can't get it done really. And what I thought was cool about the booking was that he wins, but you think to yourself, there's no way he can win the next one because he took such a beating. So it really leads into that next match, right? It puts the heel over. And then you're thinking going into the 5th, well, yeah, but there's no way he's going to get a cheeky roll up in the 5th and the referee helping and all this nonsense. So I did like the finish. But quite a standard match again. Like I said earlier, the match that shows off his technicality and where he can go in the wrestling ring really is the Ric Flair match.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just to kind of finish off here, I did go on a bit of a binge afterwards and watch some of his other matches on the network just to get more of a flavor of him. And I saw some really good technical stuff. So I watched one match with him and a pre-$1 million man, Ted DiBiase, and a pre-mustache or beard, which is a terrible look for Ted DiBiase. And there's this really great wrestling style of his that I hadn't really seen before, where DiBiase kind of has him in the headlock and... that kind of where they bounce off the ropes and then fling them?
Yeah.
So almost like an Irish whip, but as he goes to get bounced off the ropes, Magnum T.A. kind of like does a whoa, 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 and like kind of stops the momentum, which I really liked. And a lot of kind of basic reversals to, or kind of very clever reversals to very basic moves. There was another match of his I was watching where He had someone in a key lock. So he had his arm up in kind of a key lock, and the guy scoops him up and slams him. And as he slams him down, Magnum kind of flips the guy over and still has him in the same key lock. So this kind of very bit flashy, something that I didn't expect to see out of Magnum T.A. from watching these matches. So I know there's definitely more to kind of be seen from him, and more I think my thoughts overall is he's definitely someone that's worth checking out for me. I think from what we've seen, there was definitely potential there, and I think had his career have not come to the short end that it did, like he was only wrestling for 6 years in total. Of that in Jim Crockett Promotions was only 2 years. I think
how old was he when his career ended?
I'm not sure. I want to say somewhere in his late 20s, maybe.
Really? So he was that young? I mean, it's the 80s.
It's
so
the
everyone
80s.
Looks old.
Everyone looks like an old man in the 80s. I could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
He might have been like 35, but I don't think so. I think he just looked older because everyone looks older back then. You'll like this. Just a quick aside. I'm in a group chat with a bunch of other wrestling fans, people I work with over at Pro Wrestling Eve. Check them out on demand. That's their one plug. And they were trying to decide who the youngest in the chat was. And they mentioned in there, they were like, well, I think it might be Dale, even though he looks like Arn Anderson. Which I don't know why, but I'm taking it as a compliment. Man hit a mean spine buster, and he looks like a grizzled old man. I'll take it. You grow up wanting to be Flair, but I'll take Arn Anderson.
Yeah, you're right. He was in his mid to late 20s. He was, I guess. When did you say he had his accident? 86.
Yes.
Yeah, he was 27.
Wow.
27, I think.
Younger than both of us. And he looks older than either of us, but in a way that I respect.
He looks 40.
It's bizarre.
Well, just to give my 2 cents, it's like a sort of conclusion here. I agree. I think he had all the potential in the world. Like I alluded to earlier, I don't know that he quite found himself. And you're thinking about he's wrestling for Jim Crockett Promotions. He's wrestling for the NWA title. That promotion, correct me if I'm wrong, turns into WCW, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't know if this form of him becomes, he's in that stratosphere like Hollywood Hogan, DDP, Goldberg. I don't know if he ever
goes into
that
the
level. However,
stage.
Yeah, if he goes into the 90s, I don't know whether he gets that. Having said that, he had all the potential to. He had all the potential to sort of find that character, like we were alluding to earlier. This guy, and especially in the matches that we watch, he's so stoic, he's so reserved, and I think that's the kind of hero that fans wanted in that time period, in those territories, and in that sort of syndicated broadcasts. I think that's the kind of hero that they wanted. But I think even at that time, like we were alluding to earlier, times were changing. We started to want these more larger than life personalities that sort of really came off the screen. And so, I think he had all the potential in order to get to that level, but unfortunately, his career was just cut short, though.
Well, and I think what was interesting, something I missed out in kind of his biography, is when I listened to some of the interviews he's talked in, he talks about how during his friendship with Andre said, I'm going to speak to the WWF and get you brought over here. Andre disappears for about a year, and during that time, Dusty Rhodes says, listen, I've spoken to Butch Reed and, kind of Mid-South, and they're offering big money. Like he said, they were offering 6 figures, which, considering he hadn't heard back from WWF, he took it. Now, I don't know what Magnum T.A. in the WWF at that time looks like, as we're heading into characters like Hogan, Macho Man,
Yeah.
even
Crazy characters.
these
Yeah.
big, larger than lives. Whereas I can see a place for him amongst the Ric Flairs and Ricky Steamboats and Dusty Rhodes. Like, I can see him working with those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I guess ultimately, the question that we posed at the start of this, and the question we need to answer: do we think he would have been a world champion had it not have been for his career coming short the way it did? And should he have been?
It's tricky. It's a tricky question. You know, like I said, that I think he had all of the assets. He had all the skills there, but you look at him in that match with Ric Flair, and Ric Flair is the star. Ric Flair is Ric Flair. He's so fully formed. He's so charismatic. You're watching that guy, and that guy's bringing up Magnum along with him. You know what? I'll say yeah. I'll say yeah because he was so young. I didn't realize how young he was. I thought when we started this conversation I was going to say no, but I'll say yeah because that guy had time to grow, and he had every asset that you could hope to have. And so a couple of years under his belt. When wrestling goes, what is it, like 5 years later? Wrestling goes worldwide. Those promotions are no longer syndicated television. They are in every home in the United States and the world. And I'd say given time to grow, I'd say, if not yet, then definitely he had all of the potential and all of the assets there in order to be able to.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, at 27, he had the world ahead of him. Had he not have gotten in the unfortunate accident that he did. So I think absolutely he would have been a big star, and he should have been a world champion at some point during his career. I would also say for people who've been interested by anything we've said here, definitely check out the matches we've spoken about. I think also worth checking out are his matches with Butch Reed, with Ernie Ladd. He had his matches with Wahoo Daniels. I watched a match of his with Arn Anderson, which was great. He's definitely someone that's worth checking out. And also, he did do quite a lot of tag team work. They seem to be a bit hard. When you look at the tag teams, they don't really make sense to me. The likes of Mr. Wrestling 2 and guys like that. But definitely worth checking out some of his stuff on the network, and there's so much of it on there as well. So I think that wraps everything up, Dan. We are over the hour mark, so I think we will wrap this up. Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think they're probably going to be this long in the future. We'll
aim for less than an hour.
Yeah, I think that's the goal.
We're trying to get back into the swing of things, right?
It's difficult, you get chatting, you get rambling. We're going to watch this back. There's probably going to be some stuff that we talked about that we didn't need to. We're going to learn. We're going to grow. If you have any thoughts about what we should do better, or if we were just great, leave a comment. Let us know.
Please leave a comment. And also, we're going to be streaming this live every Thursday.
Yeah.
At 8 p.m.
Yeah. So the time will remain the same as today. It's just purely the date.
So if you want to join us, we're going to have the chat open. If you want to get involved in this conversation, next Thursday, 8 p.m. UK time, Eastern and Pacific time. I don't know.
Google it. 8 p.m. UK in, and then put where you are. It'll tell you. We've had to do it for years. What have we got? So obviously people will be able to comment who they want us to talk about, but seeing as how we don't have any comments yet or anything coming in, Dan, who are we looking at next week?
Next week we are looking at the charismatic and unusual Adrian Street, who is a UK wrestler who wrestled in America for a little bit, who had charisma for days, and who maybe, same as Magnum T.A., never achieved the heights that maybe he should have, especially in the US.
Yeah, very interesting. I know nothing about. I think he's Welsh. but I know nothing about him other than maybe that one fact, which I don't even know if is true. So join us next week for that. Dan, do you have anything to plug before we go?
No.
Excellent. I also don't have anything really to plug. My Instagram handle is down below at Dale Brody Creative. Dan, something handle is there, DKMRGN. What socials are you actually on these days? When was the last time you think you used Instagram?
A while ago. I have an album coming out next month, so I'm planning on hitting it a little bit. So
throwing surprises out. Hey, you didn't tell me you're working on an album. We'll discuss this later.
You don't enjoy my music.
How dare you? Nuts and Bolts is a modern classic that never made it. One joke is for Danny Evans.
Anyhow, all information will be available in the description.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
See you next week.